4 weeks are in the books, and that means another episode of the OCL podcast is coming your way. I am JarlCarl, back from my camping trip, joined by Llama. How goes it, sir?
Doing good. We've played a lot of weeks. We've learned a lot about these teams, learned a lot about ourselves, and still have not learned a name for our podcast. So it's going good. It's going good.
Absolutely. I hope you had a nice 4th of July, everybody. Because of that 4th of July, the Poro League was off this week. They are going to resume in this upcoming week. TD Ascendant will play OC Academy in an elimination match. Remember, it's a double elimination tournament, which means you can get knocked out real quick. So both these teams fighting to stay alive.
Both of them looking to bounce their way back up to that grand finals matchup. This week, like you said, we'll be eliminating one more of those teams. Baron Buddies were eliminated last week. So we'll see of those 4 teams who will be taking that title. I think, like we said, we already know Syndicate look very, very strong sitting up there, but anything could happen.
Waiting for someone to challenge them. We'll see which one of these 2 teams is able to survive and fight for that title. Moving to the Premier League, there was some unfortunate news. Niner Esports, much lauded team here on the podcast, has been disqualified from the league for smurfing due to want to see a trick. They had an alternate account against the rules. They have been disqualified from the league going forward, and their matches have been stricken from the board.
Yeah, so pretty much, it's weird, right? Because they were the #1 overall team. Didn't really think they needed to smurf to get that good practice in, but they're looking good. They are unfortunately, like you said, all their matches are not going to count, so they're going to be reverted. Everything that they played is going to be an 0-2, and everything here on out is going to be a free win, an 0-2 for whoever were to play them.
In a way, already, every match they played was an 0-2, so essentially nobody will gain or lose from this. It's effectively like they didn't exist, which makes at least the scorekeeping a little bit easier, but it will be just a 9-team league going forward. Everything else will stay the same. There will just be a bye each week instead of playing them and then going into the playoffs. Still the same number, 6 teams will make the playoffs, etc. So no real changes to the format, just only with 9 teams. Moving on to the power rankings, we've got a new #1 team for the first time. It is Elysium Shield, 8-3 on the overall record after yet another 2-1 victory.
Yep, Elysium Shield, they stand alone at first place now with their record, and it's like you said, the Niner Esports was kind of holding their perfect games over them week after week, and, the first month being played. Now they finally break into it. They take a 2-1 victory over the bad guys, and they crack into, they've been waiting. They've been sitting at #2 saying, I want to get in there. I want to get to that #1 spot, and finally they're here.
Absolutely. They did drop another first game. They have some slow start tendencies. I don't know what it is about this team. They just ramp up, and then they finally win games 2 and 3. So that's something to look for in this team. I think going forward, a best of 5. If they continue to be slow starters, even in the best of 3, will they just drop a series due to not getting going? But if it's working for them, they're winning these series, I guess you just keep going.
Got to keep going, and honestly, it's been Vortex as well. Still tied for the highest ranked AD carry in the league, and when Vortex gets going, Vortex just does Vortex things. Got Zaya both of their winning games this time around, and mobile AD carries with Vortex mix very, very well, but you talked about those tendencies to drop that first game is very dangerous, especially if you're talking about playoffs, especially if you're talking about these, good matchups that are coming up, and next week, they're going to be playing OE Infinity, who if you drop a game to, they could easily take a second one pretty quickly.
Yes, they certainly could. The slow start works, fine against the lower tiered teams, but if you start playing against #2, #3, you could find yourself out of a series very, very quickly. OE Infinity will see them relatively soon in the power rankings down below. A matchup definitely to watch for. Really defining whether Shield can stay at the top of the table and break away, try to be that new person to catch, new team to catch, or if there will be a race for the top going for playoffs. But the #2 spot, it's the other OE team. It's OE Nova. 1 game behind at 7-3. Those games do count.
Yeah, they do count just a little bit. I think both the OE teams are really, really close, and it's possible that OE Infinity is maybe just a slight touch better, but I think, like you said, the record does help you out here. For OE Nova, you are 1 win ahead of that OE Infinity team, so you're sitting in lone second with the record, and they did take a 2-0 win against Divine Temple, who we have had as the most movement team throughout the power rankings, right? They started at 10, they moved up to 3, and now they're sitting a little bit lower. That we'll find out later, but they did it so good as well. It's not only that they beat a top team, they beat them in overall kills after the 2 games. It was 6-1 in Nova's favor.
That is a lot of kills, right? I think nope. That is a lot of kills. It matters how well you win the games. Not for the record, but it matters for the confidence. It matters for this kind of power ranking, right? If you're able to just come out swinging and crush a team, that's going to matter a lot more. It's going to make you a lot scarier than if you're barely able to eke it out. Some Elder Dragon steal you in the game. They dominated in this game, and that matters, especially if you want to be a top team. You need to just be closing out against the teams lower in the standings.
And we did talk about Divine Temple's power points. They smashed Divine Temple's power points. We said, oh, it's gonna be Kudzi and Owner right in jungle mid that are gonna wreck everything for them. They just shut down those power points. For Divine Temple, they tried to pick Ornn Malphite, try to play weak side of there. No, those tanks did not get a single kill, and then Major got Zeri both games, so it was so easy for them.
Absolutely, right? Getting that pool expansion, Zeri, very strong champion, can make a lot of plays, of course, very frustrating to play against. Looking to be a good matchup against the bad guys next week, a team that is still, around the middle of the table, somewhere around there, pretty even on the record score. A game that this team certainly needs to win if they want to continue trying to fight for that first place spot. In third place, it's the sister team. It's OE Infinity chasing after their sibling. Just a couple of games fewer played overall. They are 6-2 in the third spot, up 2 points this week.
Yeah, they did a really good job. It seems like a lot of people have moved up for some reason. I don't know why, but a lot of people moving up this week. They took a 2-0 win against Dynasty KS Emerald, who, again, we're still having a little bit trouble figuring them out because they do have some wins, they do have some losses here and there. But I do gotta say, overall, it's a good win. They won in draft, they won from the beginning, and I know Robin we're gonna give them a little bit of an ego boost. Absolutely smashed bot lane, 33 kills in 2 games.
Well done, Robin. That's a ton of kills, of course, across 2 games, especially in competitive series. They've been playing a lot of traditional champs to beat their opponents. They're not relying on cheese. They're not relying on random draft surprises, right? They're just going in, playing meta champs, and beating their opponents, which is really, really important. All of their wins thus far have been clean 2-0s. They're not giving up games, which is sort of ironic. They're playing Elysium Shield next week, a team iconic for dropping at least one game. I think that bodes well for OE Infinity. This is a statement game, certainly. If they're able to beat Elysium Shield, I would be surprised if they don't take that top spot.
Yeah, I would not be surprised either if they just jump up there as well. But also, the other thing is, on their loss, they didn't take a win. So they haven't been taking wins on their losses as well. So they do have to be just a little bit careful that, although, yes, Elysium is maybe dropping a few games here and there off of their wins, they're still taking the wins, right? They're still taking those full wins.
They certainly are. And your fun fact for this team, they are tied for playing the least number of games so far in the league. They have not had a series go to 3 games. You may be able to guess what the other team is. We'll get to them later. That's your OE Infinity fun fact. In position number 4 is one of the other organization teams that we cannot place. It's Elysium Valor. They are 3-6, and they have moved up into the 4th position. Llama, explain ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we have literally a team that has tied for the second worst record in the league. I'm not gonna lie. Yep. There's definitely some mystery around them, but I believe they played. All right, Elysium Valor. Yeah, they played already Niner Esports. So that loss, I believe, is erased off the table. But for right now, again, they've still played so many top teams, right? That was the start of their season, and now they just take a nice 2-0 win. Now they just go in, take the dub, and walk out with it.
Yes, indeed. They take the win over Bad Out Bunny, who still have not won a match. So absolutely hard to place. They've beaten the bottom tier teams. They've lost to the top tier teams. We're giving them the benefit of the doubt at position number 4. They end up moving up a lot because of Niner Esports being disqualified, so the record will shift as well. They had a couple nice games on Jinx, on Xayah, some pretty strong carry 80 carries. Mid-level matchup next week could solidify themselves there. We'll see where they end up getting placed. I think this is a team that, even though we're almost halfway through the season, we still need more data points on because they haven't played anybody else near their ranking.
Right, it's so tough. They've played the top, they've played the bottom. Play some middle games, okay? Let us see the middle of the pack here, at least for them. But yeah, it's like you said, they make the biggest jump this week on 3, so really nice. And I gotta say, again, when we talked to Elysium, they had their Civil War, they had it week number 1. We talked to their CEO, that was one of the players that was saying, we want both of these teams in the finals, and every week it just seems like it could be possible.
Absolutely. So far, the 2 organizations, the OE teams and the Elysium teams, are 2-3 and 1-4, respectively. So the top of the table right now are the teams in the organizations. We could see some battles in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a ton of fun to see, but I think they're deservedly in those positions, right? These teams look very, very strong. I think all of the 4 teams we've talked about so far are certainly title contenders. Moving on to a team that found their nexus exploding twice this week. Divine Temple falls 2 spots to a 5-5 record after an 0-2 loss to OE Nova.
Vine Temple, it's another team that we still is such in a weird spot, right? They've played some of the lower of the table teams. This loss just it looked so bad, right? That we really didn't have a grasp on this team because again, Divine Temple came in a little bit late. We started them at 10. We talked about it. We moved them up to 3 after their first couple wins, but it just seemed like every single PowerPoint. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It just got crushed, right? Their mid jungle we talked about was so good. Nope, crushed, gone. And just 0-2, it's a bad way to lose too.
They got obliterated off the map, right? We talked earlier about how OE Nova destroyed in their games. Divine Temple is unfortunately the team that was on the receiving end of that. T1 owner not having a good week. They play Elysium Valor next week. Finally, a middle-tier matchup for Elysium Valor that we've been wanting to see. I think this will be a very interesting match to watch, number 4, number 5. Can Divine Temple rebound from this? But this was an off week for this team in pretty much every category, and they fall 2 spots accordingly.
Yeah, and I mean, the one bright spot is, yes, they took a game off of Elysium Shield, but I think we have mentioned before, Elysium Shield has a little bit trouble winning those first games, so it's still hard to pinpoint, was that first game actually a really good game against Elysium Shield, or was it just Elysium Shield memeing around?
The final team that we have currently making it into playoffs is also the only team that didn't move this week, which sort of means that they actually went up 1 spot since we lost a team, but you figure the math out on that one. It's Bad Guys at 5-5.
Yep, 5-5. They're tied for 4th on their overall record, but they take another loss this week. Obviously, they lose 1-2 to Elysium Shield, but the alarm bells we talked about last week, they're ringing. I think they're still ringing this week because it's such a hard thing to say. The top team, you took a game off the top team and yet we're moving you nowhere, right? Mm-hmm. But it just seems like Elysium Shield is just memeing those first games. It seems like they're not taking them as serious as the next 2. So it's still good to get a win there, but I don't think that series looked good for them.
It did not. This was not a series that inspired a whole lot of confidence in this team. They are tied 5-5, but they have a difficult schedule going forward. They play OE Nova next week. It's not going to get a whole lot easier from there. They just did not look inspirational in their games. They did win that one game, I think sort of with an asterisk, since Shield just keeps losing these games in series that they end up dominating reasonably easily. They just go down as a 2-1. For their playoff hopes, it's great to get that win. 5-5, they're tied for 4th in the record department at this point. So they have good chances for playoffs, but I think we'll need to see a little bit more if we want to see Bad Guys challenging for those top spots.
Yeah, we're going to see a little bit more. And they're kind of the opposite. They're the polar opposites of Elysium Valor, where they've played a lot of the lower-the-table matchups. So as, like we said, like you were saying, as the season goes on, it is going to get harder and harder and harder. And those matches, I mean, you could miss playoffs if you start not picking up games.
Dynasty Chaos Emerald is the team in 7th place. 3-6 in the record book after an 0-2 loss to OE Infinity. They move up the 1 spot due to Niner Esports being removed from the league, but essentially flat over the week.
Yeah, didn't move too much, and it's just weird. It was like, I don't know what happened in their series. They just got mega giga draft diffed. Like, they went for all these like super weird picks. I do gotta shout them out. They picked Kale Top in my favorite position, which, I said if anybody does that, they'll get free props from me. So you get the props, but it went 0-7. So that's not exactly what you want to do with it.
That was not the llama shout-out condition that we were hoping for. It did not go super well. You need Kale to pop off, right? Or at least go even, just wait out and get to level 16 and then win the game, something like that, against a top lane powerhouse. Also, it just didn't really work. The picks, they weren't working. I think it's the kind of thing where it looks really silly if the cheese picks, the fun drafts go wrong. They kind of went wrong here. They don't take too much of a hit since OE Infinity is a strong team. They get the bye next week, so they'll have a little bit of extra time to practice before they go on. But overall, another week just not quite clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and it's also that it felt like that OE Infinity just knew how to play it, right? That like okay, you pick all this weird stuff, we'll just pick traditional draft and we'll beat you. Also in that Kale game, it only went 23 minutes. That is not enough time for Kale to evolve into its final form.
Dynasty Chaos, fortunately, will get the free 2-0 win next week, so they'll get some points on the board. They'll also just get a little bit more time to pick themselves up and get ready for their match the following week. So this is the team that will have the first bye, essentially, due to Niner Esports being disqualified. Sure.
That's good.
All right. 8th place, which is newly second to last, is Always Slept On, again with a 3-6 record after their 2-0 win over Niner Esports.
Yeah, they're the first team to get a 2-0 win over the Niner Esports. The DQ, of course, coming this week. But it's just like we talked about with Dynasty Chaos Emerald, that you need to take these weeks off to prepare, right? Your schedule is not going to get any easier. You still only have that one technical win. Yes, you have the 2 from the Niner Esports, but you still got to be working. I mean, playoffs is still in sight. You still have 5 weeks to possibly work forward, pick up some games, and now's the time more than ever to do so.
Absolutely. They play Ban Out Bunny next week, the bottom team in the league. This is almost certainly a must-win game, in my opinion. You need to be winning this series. It could be it could be an elimination game at this point, just because a lot of the other teams are picking up those points on Ban Out Bunny. You've got to start stringing some wins together if you're always slept on. So we've been sleeping on them for a long time. They need to wake up very soon if they want to make a run for playoffs. And moving up one spot on the DQ, it's Ban Out Bunny, now in 9th place after their 2-0 loss to Elysium Valor.
Hey, Ban Out Bunny moved up. Let's go. Good job, guys. No, but they move up because of that DQ, but nonetheless, it is still a loss to Valor. Like, it's a great loss to have, right, that you got beat by Valor, a team that is unfortunately skyrocketing up and up and up, but they will stay in last year. And like we said, next week going to be important for them as well. As much as it was important for Always Slept On, for Ban Out Bunny, it's not over. It is crazy mathematically for them to, make the playoffs, but it starts right here. If you want to skyrocket yourself into a position into that top 6, you have to win this next matchup.
Absolutely. They've already played Niner Esports as well, so they've essentially only played 3 series. Plenty of time to get back. You need to win next week. Just like Always Slept On, if you want to make the playoffs, you need to win this match. I think one of these 2 teams. I would be stunned if Ban Out Bunny lose this week and still make those playoffs, so you've got to start turning it on at this point. There's still enough time, but it has to happen right now.
Got to happen now, and I would love to see their players start to pop off. I mean, we've pointed out Stephen Hawkins' jungle performance in the past, but it's just crazy on Jarvan in back-to-back games. It's going to be tough. You got to get those players to start to step up. You really need to get going.
Moving on to our biggest movers, we've got a few larger numbers this week, which is always exciting. The biggest mover up is Elysium Valor. They pick up 3 spots, which is essentially 2 spots, given that everybody moved up 1 as the baseline, but they were able to win their series, and we're giving them the benefit of the doubt and move them up to number 4. They're up 3.
I think they're still one of the biggest question marks. They could move massively once again next week if they lose pretty horribly, but I don't really think that's going to happen. I really think we have started to kind of figure them out just a little bit more, but yeah, with that extra jump up, they get the +3. They finally get a win against an easier team. On
the other side, Divine Temple fall 2 spots, which essentially sort of like 3 spots, which is never a good sign. A really tough 0-2 loss to OE Nova. This one hurts for Divine Temple. They fall quite significantly.
Yeah, this just proves, though, to everybody that it also matters how you win or how you lose, right? That if you lose 0-2 in that fashion that they did, you're going to drop.
Turning our focus to the week to come, week number 5, players to watch. Llama, who are you looking at?
So I'm going to the AD carry position. It is going to be Vortex for Elysium Shield. Elysium Shield, obviously top of the table, number 1 overall. And yes, they have power points all around the board, but Vortex has just been everyone, like the shining star, the gold star, and still tied for the highest AD carry in the league. And again, not only did Elysium Shield win this week, but they got the 2 wins that they got. Vortex just looked absolutely amazing, confident, skilled, and has a versatile champion pool that we've seen now week over week. People be like, okay, we're gonna ban all of the other carry champions for AD carry. It doesn't matter. The champion pool is too wide to ban out everything.
Our eyes are also on Static, the AD carry for Divine Temple. Not a great week for this team, as we have repeatedly said on this podcast thus far. We've talked a lot about their mid jungle, but I think eventually you just need to look somewhere else. The AD carry position has had a lot of success in this league thus far. Hoping to see Static expand past the Misfortune. Did not work this week. I think that's a champion that is a little bit fringe, not quite mainstream. Looking for Static to maybe pick up one of those carries and start saying, hey guys, get on the back. I am carrying us to a victory.
Yeah, and I would also love Static to go off non-traditional things. I feel like Ashe and Misfortune, yes, they're okay picks, but they're not your Tristanas, your Zeres, your Felioses, your big carries that I feel like Static would perform well on.
Zooming out for matches to watch. Astute listeners will not be stunned when I tell you it is Elysium Shield as the first name on this. It's Elysium Shield versus OE Infinity. I agree with the reasoning, Llama, but tell us what it is.
Hey, listen. I know I've put an Elysium team in every week. I know, okay? I've heard it over and over, but this is a banger matchup, certified llama banger for the podcast this week, okay? This is a top of the table. This is a possible playoff final or semi-final matchup. I mean, we're looking at Vortex versus Robin, 280 carries. We could not highlight more, and this could be always Infinity one chance to kill the Kings.
It certainly could. I started reading the King Killer Chronicles while I was on vacation, and it could be prophetic. OE Infinity, I think they have good chances in this match. They look really strong. They're coming out of the gates swinging. Elysium Shield is doing the opposite. This is a certified banger. I'll throw my name on there, too. It's Carl and Llama certified. Go watch this match if it's on stream. It's going to be fun. The other game we're looking at is Elysium Valor versus Divine Temple. Why are both of the Elysium teams in our matches to watch yet again?
I mean, why not? You know, because they're so good. It's just every single time. Like, they had the Civil War, which is always an interesting matchup because you get the, fighting between the sister teams, which is always fun. But this is just another top of the table, right? We're going to have a little bit of those lopsided matches this week where we're going to have some of the highs fighting the highs and some of the lows fighting the lows, which can be very, very detrimental towards your leaderboard or playoff chances if you lose these. So I think it's going to be an interesting one.
I think it absolutely will. It's just a match that will show which direction these teams are moving in, right? Can Elysium Valor sustain their upward trajectory? Can Divine Temple stop the bleeding and keep themselves in the playoffs? Will it be close? Will it be a blowout? There's just so many question marks that this is a game we are excited to get to see, get some more data from, and hopefully refine our projections going forward, because I think either of these teams could win 2-0. Either of these teams could have a very close match with each other. I think it's a complete question mark for me. We are very close to halfway through the Premier League of OCL season number 5. 4 weeks in, 5 to go, and then the playoffs after that. Some exciting matchups this upcoming week. I hope you will tune into the stream at twitch.tv/Optimal Championship League as we get back into the swing of things after the 4th of July holiday. This has been JarlCarl and Llama thanking you so much for the pleasure of your company, and we hope we will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.